Just what does it mean to come back here and be able to play or just as an opponent tonight?
Yeah, AZ was good to me, but I'm way happier where I'm at now. It was good to see people. It was fun to play in front of some fans. But for me, I'm way happier in Indiana.
They didn't just lose, they were humiliated. 95-60. That's not a score. That's a surrender notice. The Indiana Fever walked into Phoenix looking for redemption, and instead, they got run out of the building. But the final score wasn't the real story. No, the real story was brewing beneath the surface. A story about loyalty, betrayal, and what happens when the person you thought was in your corner turns their back without a word. Sophie Cunningham wasn't about to stay quiet anymore. She'd been holding this in for months, but after this game and after one particular player's post-game celebrations, she finally let it out. And what she revealed about DeWanna Bonner's exit from Indiana?
That had to have been one of, if not the most embarrassing loss of the season for the Indiana Fever so far. We lost to the Atlanta Dream earlier in the season, 77-58. We lost to the Valkyrie earlier in the season, 80-61. And tonight, against the Phoenix Mercury, we lose 95-60. Does this team practice? What I saw tonight looked like what I saw a month ago. Looked what I saw 3 weeks ago. Absolutely no offensive game plan. I thought this motion offense is when it's nobody's night in and night out. Everybody's allowed to have a night. If Kelsey Mitchell doesn't play well, it needs miraculous efforts from the rest of the team to pick this up. Sophie Cunningham played great tonight. Kelsey Mitchell had a bad game. Bad game. Where's everybody else?
Left fans stunned. From the very first possession, you could feel something was wrong. The Fever couldn't buy a basket, and I'm not talking about bad luck. I'm talking about shots clanging off the rim like they were throwing bricks from half court. They started the night, couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. And by the end of the first quarter, it was already a sinking ship. Passes got picked off like Phoenix had memorized the playbook. Missed rotations on defense left Mercury shooters wide open, and the scoreboard was running away before most fans had even finished their popcorn. The numbers told the ugly truth: 34, 3% from the field, a miserable 7 for 3, 0 from 3, and 22 turnovers, 22. And Phoenix didn't waste a single one of them, cashing in 42 points off mistakes alone. That's right, they scored more off Fever turnovers than Indiana managed from deep the entire game. But the scoreboard wasn't the only thing collapsing. Midway through, Sydney Colson went down clutching her left knee. The arena went silent. Minutes later, Aari McDonald started limping on her right foot, forcing her to the bench. Two critical pieces of an already thin rotation, gone. Watching your teammates get hurt in the middle of a blowout? That's not just a loss, that's a gut punch you feel for days. For Sophie Cunningham, this game wasn't just another date on the schedule, it was personal. She was back in Phoenix, the city where she'd built her career, the place that had once cheered her name. But if anyone thought she'd be intimidated or sentimental, they didn't know Sophie. From the opening tip, she came out swinging, hitting threes, driving into traffic, jawing right back at anyone who tried to test her. While her teammates struggled to even get clean looks at the basket, Sophie was locked in. She dropped 18 points on efficient shooting, looking like the only player on the floor wearing Fever colors who still believed the game could be saved. And she wasn't just scoring, she was scrapping for rebounds, diving for loose balls, and getting under the skin of Phoenix's stars. Alyssa Thomas tried to body her up. Sophie didn't back down. DeWanna Bonner stared her down. Sophie fired right back. Aliyah Copper got physical. Sophie matched her step for step. It was the kind of fight you see from a player who refuses to let the scoreboard dictate her effort. But effort alone couldn't cover for a team falling apart around her. And as the minutes ticked away, it became painfully clear. One player's will wasn't going to be enough to stop Phoenix. If Sophie Cunningham was fighting to save face for Indiana, DeWanna Bonner was fighting for something entirely different: revenge. From the moment she stepped onto the court, it was clear this wasn't just about basketball for her. She wanted to make a statement, and she made it loudly. Bonner poured in 23 points, but it was everything between the whistles that told the real story. She wasn't just scoring, she was putting on a one-woman theater production. Every made basket came with a stare down, every defensive stop with a smirk or a word over her shoulder. At one point, after hitting a rare three, she sprinted past Lexi Hull and called her a bum to her face. This wasn't subtle trash talk, this was personal, sharp enough to cut through the noise of the crowd. And Phoenix fed off it. The Mercury celebrated every shot like it was a championship winner, dancing on the court, slapping the floor, and shouting across at the Fever bench. The scoreboard might have been enough of a humiliation, but the theatrics made it sting 10 times worse. Meanwhile, Indiana wasn't matching the energy. The focus on their bench wasn't on showboating, it was on checking on injured teammates, on holding together what was left of their roster. But that difference in attitude, it didn't go unnoticed. For Sophie, it was fuel. And the game's end was only the beginning of the drama. When the final buzzer sounded, Phoenix celebrated like they'd just won Game 7 of the WNBA Finals. But in the locker rooms, two very different stories were unfolding. On the Mercury side, DeWanna Bonner couldn't stop smiling. In her post-game interview, she spoke about finding joy again, about how special it felt to play with this kind of energy. She framed it as a personal rediscovery, like this game had reminded her why she loved basketball in the first place. And her coach, Nate Tibbetts, only poured fuel on that fire, praising her veteran leadership and the emotional spark she brought to the team. Listening to him, you'd think she'd just pulled off a heroic playoff upset instead of running up the score on a wounded team. On the Fever's side, there was no gloating, no grudge talk. Players spoke about sticking together, about the sting of losing key teammates to injury, and about how they'd need to fight through the adversity. You could see the concern in their faces when Sydney Colson's name came up. It wasn't about the scoreboard anymore, it was about the people in the jerseys. That's when the divide between these two teams became crystal clear. Phoenix had treated the night as personal payback. Indiana had treated it as a test of resilience. And for Sophie Cunningham, that difference wasn't just philosophical, it was personal. Because she knew something about DeWanna Bonner's history with Indiana that most fans didn't ask, and soon the whole world would. A few days later, Sophie Cunningham sat down behind a microphone for her podcast, and she didn't tiptoe around the subject. She started calmly, even respectfully, calling DeWanna Bonner a Hall of Fame caliber player, a veteran with the skill to score from anywhere on the floor. But then, she dropped the part no one saw coming. According to Sophie, when Bonner decided to leave the Indiana Fever mid-season, she didn't call, she didn't text. She didn't even send a quick good luck to the teammates she'd practiced with, traveled with, and gone to battle with on the court. One day, she was there. The next, she was gone without a single word. Sophie didn't sugarcoat it. She said straight up, if you're going to leave, you've got to expect getting bit. Unless you leave on some U-type stuff, and that's what that was. She made it clear this wasn't about strategy or fit, it was about basic respect. A simple message could have prevented all the awkwardness, the tension, the lingering bad blood. But instead, the team got radio silence. What made Sophie's comments hit harder was the tone. She wasn't bitter, she wasn't ranting. She was explaining what professional courtesy looks like, and how it feels when a teammate you counted on can't be bothered to give it. You could hear the disappointment between her words. Sophie wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for every player who's ever been left hanging. And now, that revenge-fueled performance from Bonner in Phoenix didn't look like a triumphant comeback. It looked like something else entirely, a petty score-settling mission against a group of women she hadn't even respected enough to say goodbye to. On paper, the box score told one story: Bonner with 23 points, Sophie with 18. But the real story wasn't in the numbers, it was in how those points were earned and what they stood for. Sophie's buckets came from sheer will pulling up for threes in transition, muscling through contact, creating her own looks when the offense around her had completely stalled. Every shot was an attempt to drag her team back into the fight. Bonner's, they came wrapped in theatrics, the stare-downs, the pointed celebrations.
And Steph, obviously, Sid had that injury, and Ari left, I think, in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Just what's the status of?
Well, it's Sid's left knee, Ari's right foot, and we'll get some more evaluation when we get home tomorrow and see where we are.
The jawing at former teammates like it was all some personal vendetta. And then there was Lexi Hull. Most players might shrink when a veteran like Bonner tries to intimidate them. Not Lexi. She matched the stare down with a glare of her own, showing the Fever weren't about to be bullied in their own building. That moment, Hull standing her ground was small on the stat sheet.
Sophie Cunningham making her return to Phoenix, and it seems as if nobody on our team other than Sophie Cunningham felt any type of emotional connection to this game. DeWanna Bonner just got done doing your team absolutely dirty. You guys escape with a victory when they come to Indiana, and you wipe your hands of it like it's all over and finished with. No, it goes both ways. You don't think we want to beat her on her home court? You don't think we want to get a W for Sophie Cunningham, making her return to the team that she spent her whole entire career with up until this point?
But huge for team identity. That's the thing. The Fever's backbone isn't built on flashy revenge nights. It's built on players like Sophie, like Lexi, who fight for the person next to them whether they're up 20 or down 30. Phoenix had a night of individual glory.
Sably, tough shot. Wasn't square, and here comes Indiana. Cunningham, another three. Oh my goodness, Sophie Cunningham!
This game meant just as much to Sophie Cunningham as it did to the Indiana Fever when DeWanna Bonner made her return. The only difference is nobody on the Indiana Fever had Sophie Cunningham's back this time around. Sophie Cunningham was the only player trying hard. The only player giving effort, play in and play out. The only player getting into it with Alyssa Thomas, getting into it with DeWanna Bonner, getting into it with Kalia Copper, while everybody else just mailed it in. This game was embarrassing, folks.
Indiana had a night that revealed exactly who they are and who they're not. Strip away the scoreboard, the trash talk, the injuries, and what you're left with is a snapshot of a team's identity. Even without Caitlin Clark on the floor, the Fever's core refused to let this game turn them into finger pointers or quitters. They stayed huddled together during timeouts, checked on their injured teammates, and kept playing until the clock hit 0. That's the kind of culture you can build on. The kind that doesn't crack when the spotlight shifts, or when a former teammate comes back with something to prove. And maybe, just maybe, losing DeWanna Bonner was the best thing that could have happened to them. Because no stat line, no flashy performance, can replace the value of players who actually want to be here. With Clark's return on the horizon, the Fever are about to get their star back. But now, they're more than just her supporting cast. They've been through a stretch that tested their depth, their resilience.
Can you see that? DeWanna Bonner hit her first three-point shot in about 6 months and runs down the floor after losing her starting spot to Lexi Hull. Runs down the floor and calls Lexi Hull a bomb to her face. DeWanna Bonner is out here calling Lexi Hull a bomb to her face.
But here's what really happened during those 40 minutes of basketball. Bonner got into multiple confrontations with Lexi Hull, staring her down after made baskets and getting chippy with Sophie Cunningham whenever they shared the court. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was putting on a show designed to embarrass her former teammates.
You know, it was, yeah, I don't know, emotions are kind of high. Honestly, it's just been a journey to get back to just being happy playing basketball again. Yeah, I'm just, the joy, trying to find that. For a minute, basketball was kind of like off the radar for me a little bit. I didn't know if I loved it anymore. Like, I had a long conversation with Alyssa, so just to feel that again, feel that energy, feel this from that building was just amazing. And I feel like it was a game that I needed to, you know, remind me, like, I love this.
And while Phoenix was busy celebrating a regular season win, Indiana was quietly solidifying the foundation of a team built to last. In the end, this disaster in Phoenix might be the turning point no one saw coming, the moment the Fever learned exactly who they are and what they're capable of when the real battles begin. The scoreboard in Phoenix will fade from memory. The injuries will heal. But what won't be forgotten is what this night revealed. It showed us that stats can be loud, but character speaks louder. That you can drop 23 points and still lose the respect of a locker room.
Look at Bonner. And Cunningham's kind of got that innocent who me grin going, and nobody's buying it.
Wow, what a steal by Bonner, stepping right into it. And Sophie knows that Doesn't want to create anything more. Little holding on. You think this is becoming a rivalry?
Oh, they're letting her have it now. They gave Cunningham a big ovation before.
And that sometimes, the real victory isn't on the scoreboard, it's in knowing who's standing beside you when things get ugly. Sophie Cunningham didn't need to match DeWanna Bonner's trash talk. She didn't need to throw shade from the podium. She just told the truth, and in doing so, reminded everyone what professionalism, loyalty, and team-first basketball look like. The Fever may have walked out of Phoenix with a loss, but they walked out with something far more valuable: clarity. Because in the end, it's easy to celebrate when you're winning. It's easy to talk big when the scoreboard is in your favor. The real test is what you do when the lights dim, the crowd is gone, and all that's left is your teammates, the ones who know whether you had their back or didn't. And on that front, the Fever already won. So, if you're riding with Sophie Cunningham and this Fever team, buckle up. The scoreboard will change, the standings will shift, but the loyalty they've built? That's the kind of thing championships are made of. Show your support for Sophie by dropping a spicy Sophie in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next video.